All right. So today, thanks everyone for joining us. We know it's kind of an interesting year. So thanks for taking the time to sit here and listen to me and Adam talk about supercharging your CMS. Today, we're just going to go through kind of 4 key areas. We're going to introduce ourselves. If you guys don't already know who we are, we're going to talk about why we're here and why it's important to use data in your CMS, how we can use tooling with Drupal to take advantage of this data, and then we're also going to talk about how to integrate it into our CMS. So let's start with introductions. I'm John, work for Digital Polygon, and I've been working with Drupal for about 10 years now. Started with Drupal 6, made my way up to Drupal 7, Drupal 8, Drupal 9. Still here doing the Drupal thing. Mainly working on enterprise websites and spent a lot of time bailing out sites that are in trouble. It's been a majority of my career. Adam?
Yeah, my name is Adam Weingarten. I'm a senior technical architect from Mindtree. Johnny and I have been working together on and off for about 10 years now. We keep following each other, bumping into each other wherever we go. So it's kind of funny, remembering that. Yeah, I primarily work with large enterprise sites, ones that are too big to fail, or where failure can undermine reputation, or prevent people from getting to extremely sensitive information. Have worked on primarily, like large scale, like Acquia Cloud enterprise sites, have done some multi-site work, and have also, unfortunately, had to work on a few sites where they needed that bailout too. So it's something that we both have done a lot on.
Yeah, and if you guys aren't excited enough already, listening to 2 architects talk about content strategy and why it's important in your CMS, it's going to be a great hour you have with us here, or 45 minutes.
Yeah, you have a problem when in the community when the architects actually care about the content and not the technology.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Let us know at the end. All right, so let's talk about why do we want to use data in our CMS, right? So I think this quote by Christina Holverson is great. Let's start by defining, why do we use a CMS, right? The role of your CMS is not simply to shuffle and store packets in your database. It's to help your content strategy succeed. So let's get back to the root of, why do we use a CMS and what should that CMS be able to do?
And this is pretty revolutionary too, because if you think about Drupal and the narrative around Drupal and CMSs to date, it's all been around the content authoring experience. The narrative has been focused on how do I allow normal people, not uber nerds, to express themselves on the web. And also in terms of the conversations that happen in Drupal and in the community, a lot of it is surrounding authoring. But there's not much on content strategy or ways to support it.
Yep, exactly. So this would be a lot easier if we were in person, but how many of you feel like your CMS is effectively supporting your content strategy? Go ahead and raise your hands, even though you have your videos off. Maybe post in chat if you feel like it is. And if there's any ways that you feel like it is, Adam would be taking a look at those. Maybe you can throw them out as we go through.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go through some examples or some questions that might help you make a better decision on this, right? So are you using emotion to drive your content strategy? If the answer to this is yes, you're probably doing it wrong.
And the answer is usually yes.
Usually yes.
Yeah, I mean, usually people inside your organization, they may be, more traditional marketing and PR people who are driving your content strategy. They may be, they may not just be as comfortable with it. They may be more focused on copy, or how it resonates within the organization rather than how things resonate with your end users. Often signs of that are like people using jargon, using different terms that mean something to you inside the building, acronyms, but they're meaningless to the user. So we see this a lot where people are like treating their content like their baby, and you end up in like land wars over like moving stuff around when it really should be objective.
Yeah, exactly. When is the last time you deleted or unpublished even content from your website? My guess is probably 50-50, never versus last week. And if you are deleting and unpublishing it, how often do you do that? Or is it just because something was wrong, right? Are you doing it on an active basis? Do you have the tools that you need to decide what should be unpublished? Or again, are you using emotion to base those decisions? Next question. How often do you get analytics reports from your marketing team? And is it frequent enough for you to use that data to inform what you're doing?
It's not uncommon to see a web team that basically has never, ever gotten an analytics report, or certainly a dev team.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, there's no shame in that. It definitely is something that does happen a lot.
Yep. And obviously, if you don't have this information, how could you be using anything besides emotion to guide your content strategy here?
And it's not just your content strategy, it's also even your development efforts, because often what can happen is that some of these emotional decisions can lead towards development of features that just aren't supported by the user base. So, I've seen people go and try to, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on implementing DCAN for, maps and stuff, except the number of people who are consuming that content did not justify spending that level of money. So some of these informations can also help you focus on your development, which then also kind of dovetails back into content.
Yep, exactly. And does your content follow this pattern? Let's say day one, you launch your website, you just went through a shiny new website refresh, you just went through a year-long process to do your information architecture, everything is pristine and nice, you did your content migration, got rid of all your rot. Over the next 2 to 3 years, as your website grows, your content kind of follows this pattern of like, I know exactly what I want to, it's kind of like going this way and that way until I get into eventually at year 3, I've got this huge mess of content from the 6 pivots my organization went through and the new change in strategy. And, I haven't been able to update my CMS because changing my navigation is hard and, everything's important, and I'm getting good content, good analytics on that old piece of content that's not relevant to us anymore. So I want to keep it just in case.
Yeah.
Right?
And some questions, Johnny, in the threads. So one person was asking, when was your last content audit? I think in this slide, the point is, when was your site rebuilt?
Yeah, exactly.
is the unfortunate truth.
It really is.
And then, the next one is, how do you operationalize content audits? That's from Chris Miller. I think we'll get more into that.
Yep. Cool. So really, the message we want to give is content does have a shelf life. Here's some examples I took from some Express writers. This is more focused around social and blog content, and not your evergreen content. And if people from the government are here, obviously you have more strict content requirements. We'll get to that in a second. But for the regular marketer or the regular blog content you put out, it has a shelf life, and it should be treated as such. A lot of times what we see is people put up content and it's never looked at again until they go to do a migration. And that's why content redesigns and migrations take so long, and they're so expensive. Our goal, being the architects that have to deal with those, is to try to decrease that effort.
So so those of you who are government folks, you looked at the last slide and you're like, WTF? Like those timelines are just unrealistic. You obviously don't understand us. You know, we have this pesky thing. It's called FOIA. We have people who look to us for reference. Yes, yes, yes. We understand. So the last slide's a little hyperbolic in some sense, but on the other hand, there are obligations for government to provide information and archives of content for citizens. It's actually a fairly important service that government entities provide. And that is something that you can still support. You can still have a content strategy that focuses on the most timely relevant content while still allowing people to access your broader library or archive. And this is kind of it's a rough idea, but each of the kind of squares is almost like an interface to your content. So the things that you really want to focus on are the things that are relevant right now. COVID, aid, things like that. So those are the things that you're going to put into your high touch content. You're going to elevate those in your navigation, your sitemap, and your search. The things that become less important, you can mark those in different ways. You can use like taxonomies to say that they're you know, no longer hot. You can mark it as an archive. There are different strategies. But once you've marked it that way, you can then kind of start to push it aside. So it's still there, it can still be accessed, but maybe it's at the bottom of your search. Or maybe it doesn't even show up in your global search anymore. You have to go to the archive search to find it. Or maybe it gets biased lower down on your sitemap. So there's different strategies you can follow to balance that content.
Yeah, and what we want to reinforce here is that through all of these questions, the one key theme that you need to keep in mind is that you need data to make these decisions and make this effectively work to determine when something would move from high touch to archive, or when you need to pull something off your website. And right now, our CMSs are somewhat limited in their ability to give you that information, at least in a non-manual way. So with that being said, it's time for a new normal. You know, times are changing. Content management systems are, you know, a dime a dozen now. They are standardized. Everyone has one. And thanks to the wealth of content that's out in the world and, you know, social media, people's attention spans, and really just the rate that technology is evolving, the average age or lifespan of a piece of content is decreasing. And this means that organizations need to be more prepared and more nimble to be able to support this faster evolution. And if you wait 3 to 5 years to redo your content again, you know, your user experience is going down, and you know, someone else is going to provide an easier way to get to the content that you're providing. With that, we think there's better ways to do content strategy. Oops.
Yeah, so we found this quote that we like by Robin Sharma: small daily improvements over time create stunning results. It was actually funny. We wrote this slide before I saw Sean Hamlin's presentation yesterday, but he made a very, very similar point, which is like, what if every day you could make a 1% improvement on your site? You know, after some time, you have it adds up. It comes together. So small iterative improvements can generate big results. You know, it applies to lots of things like your gym routine. You know, so why wouldn't you do that in your content strategy? Now, your development team runs Agile. Your marketing team probably runs Agile. They're doing tests, they're refining. Your IT does. Why isn't your content team running Agile? Or is it? The answer is it's not. Your content team is kind of, you know, running typically in more of a firing squad mode. People ask for something, they do it, and then once every 3 to 5 years, they do a new waterfall rebuild. So what we really want to do here in terms of, like Chris's question, we want to go from an operational model where it's a 3 to 5 year waterfall to a constant agile refinement. So we need tools to do this.
Yep.
So we can show you some of those. So how do we add tooling to Drupal to make this work? Well, the good news is that Drupal core actually has some things out of the box that will facilitate this. So one way is content workflow. So one thing that you can do is you can build workflows that create different states. So you have standard state transition diagrams. In workflow, I'm assuming people have experienced that before. We're not going to get into it too much. But what you can do is you can add workflow transitions that focus on content review. So you can move content that is currently published to needs, quarterly review. And then you can have someone go through the queue. So that's one way. You can also, after you've unpublished things, you can have people do different types of reviews. There are a lot of possibilities that can be chosen based on your organization and how it works. The other one that's kind of underappreciated is views. So, views is obviously one of the most powerful things in Drupal. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. One of the simplest, best things that you can do is to pimp out your content admin dashboard. So whenever on any build, we get our content model together, when all the content types are built and the taxonomies are in place, we go straight to that dashboard and we add in every taxonomy, we add in every date, every field that has any remote interest. We put all those in there and we try to break it down in a way that is easy to use. And that allows people to start to drill down and find content that fits certain categories, ultimately with the aim of editing and curating it. And you can also use it to start to create reporting. So you can take pieces that if you want to answer certain questions, you can use views to do that. But there are still a lot of limitations. Core doesn't do everything, and also most people just aren't necessarily using it to its potential. Now there is a lot more in Contrib that you can use to create this kind of iterative process. Probably the top one is the Google Analytics counter module. This module is awesome. So what it lets you do is it lets you pull in Google Analytics for a certain time period and attach it to all your content. It does a join based on the URL of the content. And you can then build all sorts of views around it. And we'll talk a little more about that. Entity usage, this one's really important, especially if you're going to unpublish something. It tells you where the content is being used. If you don't have this, you could very easily unpublish or remove content that you needed. Schedule publishing. This one is also really important. This is where you can start to automate either publishing or unpublishing stuff. And then Search API, you can make the results that they get a lot better.
Yep, so let's jump into these and talk a little bit more detail. Google Analytics Counter is something I'm really excited about. We've used it on a couple projects, and in its current state, it allows you to pull in page views for your content, like Adam said, and add them as a field to your node. And this gives you all kinds of power, right? This is kind of an example of an admin dashboard where we can integrate the page views for a week into it. It's got options for a week, month, 6 months, 1 year. And it also does some pretty awesome things like aggregate views based on the aliases of your content. So if you change the path of that page because you change your IA or something, it will actually mesh those together based on your node ID and looking up the redirects and the page aliases and support that, which is awesome. What's important about GAC? Core allows you to take actions based on time, right? GAC allows you to take action based on performance. And I think that is a key difference here. saying that my content hasn't been updated in a year is much different than saying my content hasn't had a page view in a year. And it really impacts your ability to do automation around content curation within your CMS. And I think related to that, there's a lot of things we can do with content performance and data. You can create reports, right? So you can build reports of trending content. You can build reports of underperforming content, maybe under a threshold of page views. And you can create reports of your highest performing content, which is probably the only thing that you get from your marketing team right now. And what's unique about this is your marketing reports will never tell you what pages get 0 views. Maybe you can do a diff and see what's not in those reports, but this actually gives you the ability to see what is not performing as opposed to what is performing the best. And I think that's key. It enables you to perform actions. So I can unpublish things that haven't got activity. I can flag content for review cycles, and I can start implementing some automation using this data. And then of course I can promote popular content. Think about it from search. Think about it from related content. I can use my page views to weight my content in search, or to weight the ordering of content in my related content sidebar. And it opens up a lot of possibilities here.
Yeah, and
Adam,
the thing is also that, I mean, the skeptic is going to say, well, what the hell? Like, just give those people then analytics access. And the point here is that by pulling this into the CMS and being able to join the data in these different ways, we have a lot more power than if we simply granted them analytics access by itself. And on top of that, I mean, most of these people, frankly, would never have even been aware of it. So there's also a socialization element here as well.
Yep.
So entity usage is another one that's super, super important. And I'll paste the link in here for Ben Weaver shortly. This allows us to see where we are using content. So here is a node that I had called My Important Content. It adds a usage tab to the node. And there, what I can do is I have links then to all the different entities that are using my piece of content. So if I have like entity, this works really, really well for like entity references. It's a little bit trickier for things like Layout Builder, I think. John, you'll have to remind me if I think we had to add a few things there, didn't we?
Yeah, so you know, right now it links to whatever entity owns that piece of content. So if it's in a block in Layout Builder, it'll link to that block. It won't link to the parent page that it's actually like associated with. So if you're doing inline editing for forms and sub entities, it becomes a little bit challenging. But there's some patches out there to support it, and custom. You can write your own to adjust that if you need to. We have done that on projects.
Yeah, but the thing that's most significant about this, one, it gives you some ideas about which pieces of content that you have are almost like a nexus in your site, which ones are most highly referenced. And this also works, by the way, for taxonomies as well. So you can look at taxonomy terms, and you can see which taxonomy terms are being used, which ones are not, and which ones should be deleted as a result. But most importantly, it protects you from doing something incredibly stupid when you are unpublishing or archiving content. It is extremely easy to unpublish content and then forget that your content was being referenced on your homepage, and now your homepage looks totally warped. Yeah, so I think we covered most of those. We can probably advance.
Yep. All right, so
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so scheduled publishing. This is a pretty straightforward module. I think if you guys use moderation, you might have seen this before. It allows you to schedule a transition for a piece of content from A to B. Whatever my workflow is, whatever states are there, I can schedule that transition. It enables really manual or automated publishing of content or transitions of content, as opposed to core, which just provides the framework to do it manually. And why this is important. we can schedule content to a transition, so I don't have to get up at midnight for my press release. But really, when you combine it with the other data that you have, you could start writing rules into your code base where if my content falls below a certain threshold, automate this process, right? Send it to a review cycle so I don't have to do that manually. I don't have to look at a report in analytics and find out that this page isn't getting traffic anymore and then send it to my team. That process can now be automated. My CMS can do that work for me. Anything else? Yeah, I think that's it for there. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, and this is one of our favorites. So one of the things that we can also then do with the Google Analytics information is we can actually use it inside search. So we can start to bias our search based on which things are trending. So if something is really, really popular right now, we can make sure that like our Solar search or Elasticsearch, whatever you're using with Search API, floats to the top. So it's a way to help people get to the information that matters faster.
Yep.
So basically, we can achieve the results we want by using automation as opposed to having someone go in page by page and start adjusting the weights on the individual pages because some chief or someone complained. You know, and what powers that? It's the data that we're pulling. So, you know, like, you know, Core would let us see maybe how many times a file is used, but this Google Analytics counter module would allow us to see how many times and where that entity is used, which is really, really interesting data.
Yeah, so for boosting purposes here, you know, I can actually take the data from GAC and use that inside of the Search API to boost my results in my search ranking based on what's trending this week, let's say. And that's really powerful and it allows you to use data to help inform results as opposed to emotion, which is my boss told me to up this because it's the most important to me, right? And it helps you facilitate those conversations with your content team. Now, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. So, you know, look, these modules get you probably about like 80% of the way there. There's a little bit of glue that you have to do to kind of patch them together to get you the rest of the way there. It's not horrible though.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely, you know, some patches here or there. There's other things depending on your use case that you may need.
Yeah. Now, we didn't want to leave the marketers out. This could apply to government sites as well, but I see less and less of it there, mainly due to data restrictions, and it's less about testing and more about creating a good experience. But I think with these tools, it might enable a lot of these conversations within government to help their users find the content they need faster. And I think it could be a very good application. So anyway, let's jump in. I'll handle the first one, Adam. For the current trip space, there's more support for using data here. AB JSI allows you to run A/B tests inside of your CMS without any external tools. It is a code injection tool. It does use JavaScript to do this. No different than you adding GTM to your website. But there are things, well, I didn't update this, I'm sorry guys. But AB JSI does allow you to run A/B tests. Smart content allows you to personalize content in your CMS based on basic conditions. Out of the box, it supports browser-based personalizations, but it has integrations with demand-based, and it's really built as an API or a framework to support that. So if we jump in, I just want to give you a quick overview of AB JSI. Basically, it allows you to define a condition. So is my user in the US? Could be, or it could be all traffic. And then it lets me define experiences and split up the ratio of what each experience shows. And I can have any number of tests here. So I can have an awesome experience 1 and a control experience to see what converts better and what gets the user to the content they're looking for faster. Or what generates more leads if I'm talking marketing here.
Yeah, and this one blew my mind when Johnny showed it to me. I hadn't used this before, and I didn't realize that like it was possible to do. There was a tool that integrated directly in Drupal that also didn't require me to worry about a third-party service or pay for a subscription or something. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it really enables you to experiment within your Drupal website. And you know, without data, it's not really possible. You need information on your users to give them a unique experience, and you need data points collected in order to judge if this experience was successful or not, right? Some of the things I'd love to see in this module would be actual tracking and analytics integrations. That's not there yet, but it is something that I have seen in other platforms, and I think would be a great addition, so that I can actually see when my test reaches success. Anyway, that's AB JS. Adam, you want to take smart content?
Yeah. So basically, smart content allows you to essentially place blocks with certain conditionals on them. And then when those are met, you can then display, you know, other blocks or other entities in the site. There was a question, Johnny, from Chris about how does smart content compare to Acquia Lift? I think you've used both or played with both at least.
Yeah, so Acquia Lift is much more in depth. It has a lot of different data points, and it tracks users from first touch to last. It is a data warehouse as well. Its personalization engine has the wealth of information from any time that user visited your website based on that session. And then once they convert, fill out a form, it has all of their information, right? Smart content is more, or is on its own, is less advanced. It doesn't have the store of the data collection piece in it, but it can perform the same personalizations based on browser conditions or based on your integrated platform. So if you hook this up with the Telium backend or some other content warehouse, data warehouse backend, or your own data warehouse, you could certainly make it have the same functionality as Lyft on the front end. But it requires a lot more custom development in that aspect, if that makes sense. All right. And yeah, I think that talks through most of these as well. But essentially, smart content allows you to personalize that content to your users. You can have various conditions, whether it's language or whether it's mobile versus desktop. You can switch out the content like Adam was mentioning. And you can alter the user's experience based on that. It's possible if you start tracking information on your website and you store it, you can create your own conditions. So, you know, this is for people that want to own their data, which is really where the world's moving with the convergence of first-party data and people getting away from third-party data with CCPA and everything. You should own your own data and you can act on it. And that is the best way to personalize your content. Obviously, easier said than done. But yeah.
So we're definitely getting towards the end. You know, I think the overall message that we wanted to just really, you know, deliver here is that, you know, content curation and automation does need a little bit of love in Drupal. You know, there is no core initiative focusing on it right now, and it's kind of a blind spot. That being said, there are a lot of great ideas out there that you can use to try to, put the pieces together and help tackle these issues. And just some closing, thoughts are that, a lot of the people here are used to talking about technical debt. But really what we're talking about here is tackling content debt. Johnny, what you wanted to...
Yeah, so I mean, really, we need to provide tools to help us decrease our content debt, because that content debt ends up turning into technical debt. It costs you time, it costs you money, and it hurts your user experience in the long run, especially as the life cycle shortens for that content. And really, your site's IA. 3 to 5 years is too long in today's world to wait for changes like that. Business is moving too fast.
Yeah, and like some great examples are, I mean, I in the past year, the two of us worked on a site where I think roughly 80% of the content on the site got less than 5 to 10 page views annually. And we had to fight them really hard. And we had to go to a lot of meetings with a lot of different groups to convince everyone that they had to kill that content. I think they went from something like 80,000 URLs on their legacy site down to I want to say 5 to 8,000. Mm-hmm. It was huge.
Yeah, and that process takes so long, right? If you just kept up with your website as you were going, it's a much easier process, and it allows you to enable the people that own the content to help out in that as well.
And you can also structure that process in an agile fashion with your content teams. You can put them on using some of these different processes. You could put GAC in place. You could have reports that spit out. And then you could put them on a sprint diet where they then go through and start to deal with things on a recurring basis. Maybe it's not a 2-week sprint. Maybe it's a quarterly sprint, but start somewhere.
Yeah. And finally, quality over quantity. I know if you're in marketing, you're probably pitching this now. There are over 2 million blog posts published a day, according to Market Profs. And to keep your content relevant, up to date, really applicable to your users, it needs to be higher quality content. For marketers, spray and pray is a thing of the past. I'm sure people are still doing it, and it might help you with short-term results, but it's diluting your brand. It is not helping you succeed in the long run here. Just like your tech, your content should be quality to support you in the long run and your brand. Any questions?
We had one from the Mobomo room, Johnny.
Sure.
So have you done any projects with Site Improve instead of or in addition to Google Analytics? I haven't.
No, I've not used Site Improve.
So the one thing I will say, though, is that the principle still applies. So, while, we talked about a Google Analytics connector, you could do something very, very similar with Site Improve, where you create a field on your content types and then, do the join by URL alias and, pull the data in exactly the same way. Heck, you could probably take the module, fork it, and, go ahead and just switch out the API integration from Google to Site Improve.
Yeah, for sure. And I know there are some updates coming through that module. I know I worked a little bit with the maintainer a while ago. I think my changes didn't make it through because we ran out of time, but it does sound like he's looking to incorporate more features into it and expand the GAC module to support multiple time windows. We did it as a custom patch because we ran out of time on the project, but the ability to have 30-day window versus a year window. I can use my 7 or 30-day window for search. I can use my year-long window for content authoring. It'll be a great feature when it comes out. But, I think the point is right now, there are things you could be using to help improve this and automate your content curation. I hope this helps at least get your thoughts going, because I really think the possibilities here are endless. When we talk about marketing, I mean, there's so much data out there that you use, from SEMrush to Ahrefs to other analytics platforms and personalization tools. If you could take pieces of that into your CMS to help you make decisions, the possibilities here are really, really endless on providing a better experience to your users.
Any other questions? Oh, we got one. So Wayne wants to know more about Search API. What are your thoughts about using as a means of reducing or eliminating a separate FAQ site from a main site? Interesting. What do you mean, Wayne, by a separate FAQ site? Are you talking about like a subsection of your site? If you want to unmute, you can.
Sorry, I tried to get myself off of mute. We have, it seems like a perpetual FAQ site that obviously has a repository of questions and follow-up answers. And I'm thinking if there's a way to leverage the results of a search API like you were explaining, could that effectively take away some of the need for, those ranked questions and answers?
Yeah, for sure. And there's multiple ways to do it. Basically, Search API will allow you to integrate with views and pull the data from the index. So if you're using Drupal for your FAQ, you're probably using views with some manual weighting to it. So if you integrate something like GAC based on those FAQ views, you could certainly use that to rank the questions based on priority. Or you could still integrate it to your site based on that type of ranking. And search biasing is pretty sweet. You could do it based on a ton of different fields. Like you can up the keyword match in the title versus the description versus some taxonomy fields you have, and really adjust the results that come back based on that until you get the perfect match for you.
And it's iterative. Like you're going to go through several cycles with your users to get that ideal. It is best to just manage the expectations with your customer when you start getting into search biasing. Just so that they know how much patience is required. And when you set those expectations up front, they're much easier to work with.
Yeah, lots of back and forth. And the awesome thing about Search API is it has both Drupal database connector as well as Solr connectors. So if you don't have Solr, you don't have the ability to use Solr, a lot of Gov maybe doesn't have access to new service for it, and you just want to implement it with what you have. The biasing does work with the database backend as well. It's slower and not ideal, but it does work very well.
The other one, it also has connectors for like Elasticsearch. So, nice. If you're potentially like on like an AWS cloud, I think Elasticsearch is a managed service in GovCloud. I need to double check, but that is a native integration as well.
Awesome.
I think the only one that doesn't, there is AWS Cloud Search, which is technically Solr, but I don't think that there is a connector natively for it.
Yeah. Awesome. We've got about 45 seconds left. If there's any last minute questions, you guys can unmute. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, especially towards the end of a Friday.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Chris, we answered your question, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Sweet.
Great to see you, man.
Thank you so much, Adam and John. All right, so we're going to stop here. There are no further questions. Is that correct? All right, and we are stopping.
Yeah. Thanks, all.